We'll start in about 1 minute. And if all of our candidates would have a seat, please. Oh yeah, here's some extra ones too. Thank you for bringing those. Everyone, I am so glad that you all came tonight. Isn't it wonderful to have all of our candidates for mayor and alderman here tonight? And it's even better to see so many people from our community here. My name is Debbie Lyons, and I'm the pastor of First United Methodist Church here in Winnsboro, and I'm truly humbled to be asked to moderate this session. It was in 1938 that the first Superman comic strip came out. And in that very first comic strip, Superman combated social issues like saving a woman from death row had been wrongly accused. He also, in that first episode, prevented a domestic abuser from harming his wife. And in one episode, he stopped a gangster from blackmailing a senator. Now, did you know that it was Superman that coined the phrase, truth, justice, and the American way? We are gathered here tonight as citizens and friends of the wonderful city of Winnsboro to enjoy that great American process of elections. And we are having this conversation not just with residents who live in Winnsboro, who, while they are the only ones to vote, are not the only ones that our candidates are going to be serving. We call home in Winnsboro to people who have businesses here, who send their kids to school here, who have shopping and come to art events or attend the rodeo here. These candidates that you're going to be electing serve a very wide constituency of people. I will tell you that this has been really a fun opportunity to think about what it is you, the people, want to hear from these candidates tonight. Because now more than ever, we need heroes. And in my mind, every single one of you is truly a hero for stepping up in this day and age and taking the mantle of being a civil servant, especially in times when things are contentious as they are. If you don't think they're heroes, by golly, I sure do. And we may as well name the pink elephant in the room, and that is that things have been contentious in our community. There are a lot of people that have very differing opinions, and that's okay. That's who we are as people that live in the United States of America. But I do want to tell you that today we're going to ask that God be present in and among every single thing we do. I want to hope that when this forum is over, God will be smiling out loud at us and not be at all disappointed in our behaviors, because that's what we want. We want God to be happy when this is over. So we have 6 candidates here today, and I'm going to ask you to hold all your applause until the end of the first section. I have already sent all the candidates the format of how things will be orchestrated today. They have, for example, each picked a number as to where they're seated. So they're seated randomly up here. There's no rhyme or reason to how they have been seated. And also, they will know what the constraints of our time is tonight by the timer that we will have that will limit their answers. And I've asked them all to really be thoughtful about the questions that will likely be asked, because they're the same questions that you've all been seeing everywhere. And so that conciseness is really going to matter for you all so that we can get as many questions in as possible. Also, to prepare for this forum in advance, the city of Winnsboro asked the Winnsboro News to please accept questions from you all, the people. They gathered those questions together. They submitted them to me alone this afternoon. I have not discussed those questions with any of you, have I? I've not discussed them with anybody from the city. So only Tina Davis, the editor, and myself know what those questions have been. What I have tried to do is I have grouped those common questions together so that we can address those questions in blocks. There are a couple questions that were outside the scope of the main questions, and of course those can be asked afterwards, because at the end of our first hour together, we'll allow questions from the audience. So whatever we haven't answered for the people before the end, then you'll be invited to come up to that microphone over there and ask your question. In order to make the best use of our time, again, I would just encourage you to hold your applause. And I hope that we will be done by 7:30. That, of course, will depend on how many questions are at the end. But just so you know, we have about 45 to 50 minutes of questions that have been submitted that I will be asking. Each candidate will have the exact same amount of time to answer those questions. And then at the end, we'll ask for questions from you, and then each candidate will be given 2 minutes to wrap up and give their final point to leave you with before you go. So again, we are people of truth, justice, and the American way. But we cannot do this tonight without the grace of God entwined in every single thing that we will do here. So let us begin with prayer. Oh, gracious and loving God, I thank you for those candidates who have selflessly agreed to step forward and serve your community in Winnsboro, Texas. I really, really do believe that you have given them a sense of calm and a sense of peace to communicate their thoughts and ideas. But I also pray that those that are here in our audience, either watching or listening online, have open minds to hear all the things that these candidates have to say as future leaders of this community. This is their voice we want to hear tonight, not the voice of others who have been sharing opinions so randomly out in our community. But most of all, I pray, oh God, that you are glorified in this process, and that when we walk out this door tonight, again, you are smiling upon us. In the name of your Son, I give you thanks. Amen. So I'm going to begin the forum today by asking each candidate to introduce yourselves. You're going to have 4 minutes to introduce yourselves, tell us what position you are running for, and also tell us what boards or city committees you've served on or places that you have volunteered in our community in the last couple of years. So let's start left to right, and we'll mix that up a little. So Andrea, would you like to start, please? 4 minutes.
My name is Andrea Newsom, and here I thought I was going to get to hear everybody before me. I am running for the position of mayor. I have lived in Winnsboro all my life. I know parents and grandparents and the children, and it's just a wonderful place to live. The citizens, I think, make the town. And I really think, and the reason I decided to run for the position of mayor is because I don't think the people have a voice. I think everybody gets on their own agenda, and the people of Winnsboro has so much to give and offer this town if somebody just takes the time to listen. And the senior citizens are a wealth of information. They have lived, they have learned, and they have so much to offer. And even the young, I say young adults, I call them kids, my daughter would hate that, but even they have so much to contribute and offer to this town. I think this town needs to grow in some avenues. I think there's a lot of wants and needs, and we need to define those. And I just think that in the end, you know, it's a community. We are a community. Winnsboro is a community. And I think, I hate to say the divide, everybody needs to come together. Everybody needs to work for the good of Winnsboro. And I think with the right people in place, with listening to the citizens of Winnsboro, people have so much wisdom, but we need to take the time to listen. And a lot of the times we just don't listen. I'm a listener. I can sit and talk to someone for hours and just, I want to be part of their life for a little bit. I want to see how it is that you've lived in Winnsboro, and is there things you really, really think need to change? We all know the bad egg in the whole bunch is the roads. We all know they need to be fixed. And that's a big goose egg right there. That's a big issue that is coming up. And we need growth in Winnsboro to help support the fixing of the roads. And so with that, we have, you know, certain ways we need to go about that. I think there's a lot of good. I think there's been a lot of good ideas, but I also think there's been a lot of misplaced ideas. And you need to determine right now which is the good ideas and which are not. This is actually a time that we can make a difference. And when I say we, it is not myself. I mean we, the town of Winnsboro, the people of Winnsboro. So that's why I prayed hard about running for mayor. A lot of people have asked me why, but you know, I kept giving God that one more week. I'll wait, just give me, you know, let's wait one more week. And finally it was like, okay, God, I'm listening. I'll do what you're telling me to do, and I'll listen. So I just, you know, hope that we can all listen to everybody. I hope all the questions come up. There's questions I even wanted to hear to know the answer, so I'm even excited about that. And Winnsboro is a great, great place to live. And with that, we all need to support the growth, the revitalization of Winnsboro. We need to fix the roads. And you know, we really also need to embrace the youth of Winnsboro because they are our future.
Thank you so much, Andrea. I'll ask that question again. We're wondering if you would tell us a little bit about yourself and any organizations, boards, places that you've volunteered here in Winnsboro. Michael, you want to go next?
Yes. Michael James. I have been in Winnsboro for, well, I guess 11 years now. I married into Winnsboro, and I have a lovely wife, Sandy Franson, and so I'm very excited about that. I have served on, when I first got here, I really felt the need and the desire to plug in and to bloom where I was planted. And so as a result, I had a time of, for a few years, I was on the board for the Main Street Board. And then I also have been on the board of for the Center for the Arts. I've served on the board on the Economic Development Committee on that board as well. And which, you know, a lot of those boards gave me just a lot of insight with our community, where it's going, where it's, you know, wanting to go, and which is rather exciting. I'm a firm believer that a true leader understands that he's a servant first. And a little bit about me and my thinking is that I believe that we learn to follow first before we ever learn to lead. If we're going to lead people, we're going to need to know how to follow someone. And it's not a matter of not being an A personality, which I am. I'm very, you know, I mean, I say my piece, and I'm not afraid to do that. But I also, there are times when I know I just need to be quiet and listen. And that's something that my dad taught me a long time ago. But I feel like in running for mayor, well, and I also for 6 years, I was a member of the city council. And, you know, frankly, it was an eye-opener. It was an education. I had never done anything like that before. I definitely learned a lot. Was exciting a lot of times, but, you know, sometimes it was disappointing. And especially when it seemed like it was very difficult to get the community involved in doing things. And, you know, and so that was something that we just had to learn how to do and how to communicate. Now, as mayor, running for mayor is different from being on city council. The council, you have a vote. The mayor is, yes, the mayor is the highest elected official in our city. But there's a lot of responsibility for the mayor. The mayor's responsibility is to be the voice of two entities. One, the people, and two, the city council. He is the liaison between the council and the citizen here in Winnsboro. And so basically, he's got to be a servant. He has to serve two masters, basically. So the city and the public, the general public. So there's a few things that I would like to do, and looking back in the history of Winnsboro and then seeing what has been done over the past 6 and 7 years, there's some things that I would like to bring back as mayor. One, I would like for the mayor to have an office so that what we can do is that the citizens know that, hey, on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, the mayor's going to be there. You can come in without an appointment. You can say whatever you need to say, ask any questions. My telephone number will be ready for you to have, my cell number. You can text me, you can whatever you need to do. But I truly want to be the voice of the city to the city council, and then at that point be the voice of the city council to Winnsboro.
Thank you so much, Michael. Corey, would you introduce yourself? Tell us where you've served the community or on boards, and tell us something that we need to know about you.
Thank you. I'm Corey Miller. I've lived in Winnsboro the last 8 years, in and about Wood County for over the last 40 years. My wife and I started C. Miller Drilling, water well drilling company 38 years ago down south of town near Holly Lake. And we have been participants in churches here in town. My wife and I have volunteered for many years at Morgan's Mercy Mansion, and continue to serve in that capacity in Gladewater at Restored 180 Ministries. I'm attracted to City Council for the purpose of the well-being of our city. I have gained a lot of experience in these 38 years of dealing with the real world. In that 38 years, I've launched 6 businesses, all of which continue in business to this day. We've developed patented technology and manufacturing a mud pump that is sold and shipped around the world. So I've had a lot of experience with how the world works. And the practical side, the pragmatic side of how you get things done in this world in a responsible manner, how you can contain cost and meet the bottom line in a budget. So we've got a lot of good people up here. We all share one thing in common. We all want what's best for Winnsboro. We have some very different ideas of how to accomplish that, I believe, but no one doubts the good intentions of the people up here running for these offices. I want to bring my real-world experience into city management. I think that's where Winnsboro is hurting the most, is not having a connection with how the real world works in terms of how to manage contracts and how to contain cost and how to keep the city running, the fundamentals of the city running. We have to have good streets and good water. We have to have good drainage and sewerage. We have to have all these things before we start reaching for grand plans beyond that. I think we have missed the mark in that way in our city, and that's why I feel called to this position. I hope you'll support me, and I appreciate your attention.
Thank you so much, Corey. I really appreciate that. And CJ, take it away.
Thank you, Debbie. Thank you all for coming tonight. I'm excited to see all the people here. I wish that we had had more, but I know there are a lot of people that are tuning in virtually, and I'm very happy about that. My name is CJ Thatcher. I came to East Texas first in 1986 to the Mineola area when my husband at the time was transferred there to be pastor at Smith Chapel United Methodist Church. And I became a first-year teacher. Thank you, Chris. I became a first-year teacher in 1989 at Mineola High School, and that was the same year that Mineola became a Main Street city. And I was involved in downtown, and as a first-year teacher, I did not stay involved with that for very long, but I loved learning about what it meant to be a Main Street city, and I'm very interested in the preservation of the historical aspect of cities. And so I currently serve on the Planning and Zoning Committee for the city of Winnsboro. And I first started coming to Winnsboro about 25 years ago when the Winnsboro Bakery first opened and Lynn and Lindy had Crossroads. I would come to concerts up here, and I just really got involved and fell in love with the town at that time. So I finally left Mineola ISD after 26 years of teaching to become the secondary principal at Yannis ISD, and then left Yannis to become the high school principal at Hawkins High School, where I was working when I moved here to Winnsboro 4 years ago, and then retired from education. So I want to be involved in the city council for the same reason that I became a teacher, because I want to positively impact the future of the community around me. And so it's just kind of like teaching. I'm not in it for the money. So, yes, people ask me, are you nuts? Why are you running? And I'm like, because I care about where we live. When it came time for me to retire from education, I carefully considered Mineola and Winnsboro, and I weighed the two. And the reason that I settled on Winnsboro was because at the time there were more locally owned restaurants, there was live music, and I'm very into the arts. As an educator, I was always, of course, academics is important, but so are the arts, and you have to have a well-rounded education. And so music and theater and those types of things are very important for all kids and for individuals, as adults even. So when I was comparing the two towns and where was I going to retire and build a home for the rest of my life, I settled on Winnsboro because it had a really cool vibe and really warm people. And I just loved all of the things that were going on with the farmers market and the arts center and all of the wonderful things that Winnsboro, you guys know what Winnsboro has to offer. And so when I came here, I, of course, can't just stay retired and not work. You have to be doing something, right? So I became the office manager at Winnsboro Center for the Arts. Did that for over a year. When the pandemic hit, then I made the decision. And I'm also the board president of APET, which is Animal Preservation of East Texas. We have the shelter in Mineola that serves the Wood County residents, not those who live in the cities, but who live outside the cities. And so we've recently opened a thrift store on Elm Street, East Elm Street, August 29th, and that's going well. And so those are the kinds of things that I'm interested in, what I'm involved in, and have lots of other ideas about the direction of the city, which I'm sure we'll get into in a little bit. So thank you for your attention.
Thank you, CJ. Chris?
Look at this participation. This is fantastic. We didn't know if we was going to see 20 people here or 200. But first of all, I'd like to thank all the participants here that took the time out to come and be a part of the solution. And that's what I think. As is mentioned before, yes, we do have different opinions on things, but we're all after the same thing, the best of Winnsboro. I was raised in North Texas. A lot of you Texans call that Oklahoma. Okay, how's that? Tit for tat. Okay. I'm a naval veteran. I served our military faithfully with an honorable discharge. I'm a Vietnam veteran and a first Gulf War veteran through the active Naval Reserves. After that, I was selected, congressionally selected, as a Foreign Service officer, or that is a U.S. diplomat, which served throughout the world. I have graduated from the Foreign Service Institute with honors. I speak 4 languages. Don't ask me which ones they are because I have to figure them out. But I do speak 4 different languages. And people ask me, why did you come to Winnsboro? Of all the places you lived, 80% of my career as a U.S. diplomat was overseas. I was in charge of embassy operations throughout the world. And that was part of my job in the managerial section of the U.S. embassies. People ask me why you came to Winnsboro. Why this small town of 3,400 plus people? Well, my sister is here, she's a nurse, and I've been visiting Winnsboro area for over 20 years. And it was just surprising to me when I first came here, the amount of people that just came up and said, hello, how are you doing? Where are you from? The safety of the community after living overseas in some very hazardous duties to be limited for sure. And I asked him, I said, there's just something about this town. I don't know. I just can't get it off my mind. People are friendly. I loved when I came and I saw this sign and it says, pray for, Jesus welcomes you. That was very instrumental in my moving here. It was such a fresh breath of air to see a community that was not afraid to stand up and say, I'm a Christian, and I'm happy about it. And I saw so much of this attitude here. So when it came to retirement 4 years ago, I prayed seriously about it, like a lot of people here. Is this where you want me to be, Lord? And when I came here, everything seemed to fit in place. I served, I applied for, and was given a position on the city council. I served on the Winnsboro Economic Development Corporation. I also serve as Mayor Pro Tem. And also, I have the pleasure of, when contracts come through, I am with 2 other department heads and city chairman. We review all these contracts to make sure that the city's getting the best deal for their dollar and everybody's treated fairly. I love this community. I came here by choice. I wish to be re-elected as councilman by choice. And I thank everybody for listening to me. I thank you for listening to all of our colleagues here. We do want to make a difference in this community. Thank you, and God bless you.
Thank you for that, Chris. Joan.
Now I'm ready? So the yellow dot didn't mean anything. It meant pause. Okay, I've been sick all week, so I've had a week to write some notes, and I've asked Pastor Debbie if I could read my comments, and hoping that my voice holds out. I'm Joan Morris. I think most of you know me, and I wanted to give you a brief background of how my interest in governmental affairs began. It began in high school when I was elected to the city council as secretary. Little did I know then that I would be sitting here as your incumbent council member seeking re-election again. In the early 60s, I was working at the University of California, Berkeley during the free speech movement. As an employee, we were all locked up in the buildings because the demonstrations and riots on the square and on the streets. I still have in my possession a recording of Mario Savio's free speech movement, believe it or not, from that day in history, a day that we have often seen repeat itself. While working in administration at various universities and colleges and going to college studying finances and accounting, I worked in the purchasing and budgeting departments. I assisted in Hayward State's bond proposal to build their new student union in the 1970s. So I do have experience in bonds. That's just one of them. In 1987, I joined the staff of a newly formed local government agency, the Alameda County Transportation Authority, funded by a half-cent sales tax, that's a half a penny, for a period of 14 years. It was voted in by the voters, and it was for the specific purpose of funding local street and roads improvements, bridges, interchanges, and the Bay Area Rapid Transit System. Assisted funding for that, including a $50.5 million bond for a 15-mile extension. My position as administrative manager included the important role of serving as clerk of the board. Our board consisted of 19 elected officials with all kinds of different personalities. There were 14 mayors and 5 county board of supervisors. As a result, I'm familiar with all of the policies and procedures of serving with elected officials. I've also been a board member or served on boards as the Health Advisory Board, Human Relations Commission, Transportation Citizens Advisory Board. Moving here, and I'm trying to go fast, moving here to Texas, I immediately started volunteering at the hospital and becoming involved in local church and community activities. I've served on WEDC board, WISD Facilities Committee, Political Action Committee, helping to get the school bond passed, and sent numerous reports to the Texas Ethics Commission. In addition to serving on city council for 3 terms now, I currently serve as a board member on the Christus Trinity Mother Francis Board, Hospital Board, the Wood County Food Pantry, the city's museum board, and I'm president of the United Methodist Women. Thank you.
Thank you all very, very much. We're going to do a quick lightning round, 1 minute. I'll call your name, and if you will answer this question that came in from a citizen. We had a lot of questions about trash in people's yards, unkept yards, dogs roaming the streets, restrictions on businesses in the downtown Main Street area, empty buildings. In 1 minute, please tell us if you could change one zoning law right away on your first day, what would that be and why? Let's start with CJ.
Well, let's see. Of course, I am all about the animals, and so I would probably start there. I don't know that that's necessarily the best approach, but that's my interest, and so I would try to address the issue of all of the animals that are running loose and not being fixed and just perpetuating the problem. And I know that there are a lot of responsible animal owners in the town that also recognize that that is a problem, and right now there's really no solution for them, and so that's something that I've already been involved with trying to address.
Joan, what one zoning issue would you change? And why?
Well, first of all, I think I was, have brought to the attention on city council the need to look at the houses that are in disrepair. You know, let's get rid of find out who the owners are and either have them get them fixed up or demo them and demolish them. And I think that's important. We need to have our city looking better. Yards too, get them cleaned up.
How about you, Andrea?
I guess the first thing I would do is, my thing is to clean up the city. First impressions mean a lot. It also helps people to come into the city, to shops in the city. And so I think an ordinance needs to be, and it needs to be enforced, is actually cleaning up the city. But with doing that, we have to make places available, trash bins, however you want to say it, for people to utilize in doing this.
Thank you. Chris?
Yes, Pastor. Feedback, little reverb here. Okay, as mentioned by my colleague, Ms. Morris, we've all noticed in our community the houses that have been dilapidated. It's not on. As we have noticed, there we go. In our community, we have seen houses that were dilapidated, not taken care of, neighbors that have complained to the city council, to the code enforcement section about all these things that they see. They take care of their homes, they look across, and here's someone with a house with a broken truck in their yard, debris. It looks like a landfill. Is this what we really want to project to our friends and neighbors and to the community around us, that this is the standard operating procedure for Winnsboro? In my opinion, absolutely not. Now, I do realize that there are stuff that I must stop.
Thank you very much. Corey, what about you?
Well, I have to defer the same issue. They're dilapidated, deteriorating properties. A little bit of that really detracts from the entire ambiance of a community. And so I'd like to see progress made in that regard to bring an end to that kind of deterioration. It's going to take even-handed application of the ordinances, not pick and choose. What's good for one end of the town has to be good for all of the town.
All right, Michael, it's up to you.
So is this an ordinance question or a zoning question?
Zoning.
If the zoning question is, as far as changing a zoning, we would probably have to I would say the thing that we need to do the most is there are some zoning areas that are zoned as A and B, where basically where you can have, they're zoned commercial, and then they're also zoned as a residential. And perhaps we could find some other areas that the citizens in those areas would be interested in maybe turning their zoning area into a both, where it could be residential or a commercial business put in there. That's something interesting that I don't think we've really looked at, but that might be a good way to maybe expand some of our areas to build more businesses within the city limits.
Thank you all very much. I know it's very hard to answer a question in 1 minute. So this time you have 3 minutes, and it's probably the most important question of the night. Recently, the city engaged in an entire community event to make sure that they were part of the brainstorming, visioning, and planning for the future of Winnsboro. The City Council voted to move forward with a master plan and proposed a certificate of obligation bond providing funds for the growth of Winnsboro. Before we get started on that, there were 2 strategic planning workshops and then also a final presentation to lay out the whole plan on March 30th. By a show of hands, how many of you attended all 3 of those? Most of you. Okay, thank you for that. Will you take 3 minutes and share your thoughts on that? This time we'll start on this end and go down.
At the end of the strategic planning meeting that Friday, we were asked what were our thoughts when we first came into it and what were our thoughts when we left it that day. And I answered honestly that my thoughts when I first came into it were very pessimistic. I've been to a lot of strategic planning meetings and nothing has happened. And when I sat in that chair at the end of the meetings, the 3rd day, I was very optimistic. And I felt it was the first time I have ever sat in a strategic planning meetings, 3 of them, where there were some accomplishments made. It was very well presented, very well laid out, and the consultants that we used were very thorough. They engaged everyone that participated in the meetings and everyone that sent in the survey cards. And I thought that I was very encouraged until we came to the price tags. Right, and I think that there are some good thoughts and some good ideas for the future. We have a lot more work to do.
Thank you, Joan.
Yes, I also attended this meeting, or these 3 meetings, and then the final planning roundup, or final ops, as we used to call it in the military. And I also was encouraged, because also I have sit in on several of these type of conferences, seminars, and by the 2nd day, you're just like, really? Why are we here? There's nothing getting accomplished. But everybody worked in work groups together. They gave their ideas. They put thoughts together. They gave up and gave their presentations of how this was working. And it should also be noted that our main objective was that we were to fill the needs and the desires of over 500 people that sent in surveys. This was our main driving force during this planning seminar, planning meeting. And it was very important. And every work group held that to their mode of contact, and that's what they did. At the end of it, we were all in agreement that this was the right direction to go, that we would present it to the city council, and at that time there was options in which the citizens could either say yes or no, but we did give the people of Winnsboro the opportunity. I'd like to emphasize that the council members that voted for this intent, and I repeat the word intent, it was mentioned 2 times by the city financial planner, that this was not a vote on it, it was an intent. When the 3 council members decided to vote yes, 1 abstained, that was his right and his decision, that we gave the people of Winnsboro, the citizens, an option. If we would have said no, we don't want this, it's done deal, the city council would have made that decision on its own, and whether you were pro or con for this intent of certificate, it would not have mattered. But we gave you a voice to take it to a petition and say, here's what the citizens of this city want to do, either yay or nay. I want to put that out very clearly, because when we voted yes, that's what we did. We gave you the option, and we did not dictate it. Thank you very much.
Jay.
I really had no idea what to expect when I came to the 2-day workshop here in this very building, but I was impressed very much with the whole process, because they started out with the people who handled it. Randy was the main guy. He interviewed through Skyping, like a Zoom meeting, with over 40 key community leaders. And I was one of the ones that met him that way first. And then when we all came together those 2 days right here in this room, and they had incorporated all of the responses from over 500 people and categorized them as to what, and of course, the streets, as we all know, was one of the very top ones. And I was really impressed by the way that they took all of that data and was able to get it down into these basically like 6 different categories. And we all got together, and it was a very cooperative, very collaborative deal that day. And I was in Pastor Rose's group, and we discussed everything with people. And I loved meeting new people. I didn't know a lot of the people that were involved until afterward. And like Joan said, I came away very encouraged. I felt really good about, we're really moving forward. We're really going to be doing something here. So I was very encouraged, and I still am. I think that it set us on the right track, and we're still headed in the right direction. And so I'm very thankful to be involved in it. So thank you.
Corey.
I may have misspoke about 3 events. I was here for that 2-day workshop. The workshop was a very well-managed system of putting together thoughts. There's a lot of good ideas put forward. I think it grew into a scale that is beyond the scale that Winnsboro, Texas is prepared to embrace. That's where I differ from some of the other board members here, or candidates rather. I think our priorities have to be on the basics. I think economic development and growth in our town is occurring and is moving in the right direction, and will continue to move in the right direction with a much more responsible approach than what I think has been voted to initiate. The vote at City Council the other night did more than just create a possibility. It started a clock for 45 days, and the opportunity for the citizens to stop that process is now going to require those citizens to organize and put together a petition of 5% of our voters to stop this process. The city council could have instead have voted towards putting out a bond election to put these ideas into the hands of the voters. But instead, the process and the avenue that was taken has now put the voters in a position of having to scramble to stop a process.
Thank you very much, Corey. Michael?
I was there for the meeting. I didn't make the second one. Unfortunately, I was with the hospital with my mother, but it was quite exciting to be there that first day. One, to see the goals and the plans things that we've actually been working on for 6 years, 7 years. It was a very exciting time. For it to have 500 responses from this questionnaire that went out is outstanding. That's a huge response in a city our size, and especially, you know, when we have 1,400 people that are registered to vote in our town. That's a big number. And so I felt like hats off to the engineering companies and all those that worked in it, the staff, the city of Winnsboro staff. I thought they did a wonderful job putting that together with showing what the citizens were interested in and what was the priorities that they felt like were priorities. And I think that it was really interesting working together with everyone. And, you know, so I actually, you know, I was not on city council when they voted for that, you know, but I feel that what's happening now is that the city is going forward. It takes a while to get a momentum going when you're trying to do something and create something, whether it's a business or in a city. And it's something it's good to see that there's a lot of us out there that don't agree with certain things, but I think once we stop, one, we all agreed we need the change. We need a lot of these things take place. Our streets and all of this needs to be done. I think where we may differ is how to pay for it. And is it a risk? Yes, it's a risk. It was a risk the first time I bought my first house that was $1.5 million. That was a risk. And, you know, so there are risks that we take, or calculated risks that we take, and in order to see something come about that we all want and we need, for not just what we need now or what we want now, but what our grandchildren and great-grandchildren, what is going to be left for them. And I think this was a good start, a really good start.
Thank you, Michael. I'm really glad I didn't buy my first house in California.
Yeah.
Andrea?
I also attended all 3 meetings of the planning committee. And after the survey that went out, of course, the number one concern was the roads. Everyone should know that. It's been brought up numerous times. And during this meeting, they told us, basically, if you had a wish list and unlimited funding, what would you come up with? Well, with unlimited funding, I mean, we could conquer the world, you know. Everything in Winnsboro would be great and roses and all nice. But we don't have unlimited funding. So then the next step come up of how would we fund this? And different people from different financial places and things of that sort, they had the worst job in the room, I have to say. And they come up with different options as well. I can honestly say my team, we were the dreamer team. Whatever you needed, and if it was unlimited, you pick it. Well, we come up with some great stuff. Winnsboro would be great if y'all could do, and we could have everything on the wish team. But unfortunately, we can't. I think that the bond, if we truly, and all the citizens in Winnsboro truly believed that this was beneficial to Winnsboro, it would be on the election. The people vote for it. If everyone agrees that this bond is the best thing for Winnsboro, why wasn't it put on the vote to start with the vote to start with the ball, you know, and everybody vote for it? If everyone loved it, the vote would have been yes, we would have moved on, and that would have been the end. But that's not the case. there's a lot of good things that are on this bond, but there's also a lot of questionable things. And at this time, there's important things that I think are getting left off. And once again, if it was every citizen appreciated and loved this idea, why was it not put to a vote first?
Thank you for that. I appreciate that. We've got one more question, everyone, so if you'll hold your applause for this one last question, and then you can give all these fine people a round of applause as we go. I saved the road question for last because it was the #1 request that came out of the survey from the citizens. You know, we're a community that loves our schools, supports our schools. We are all so excited for a $4.2 million football stadium that we can hardly even stand it. I think when we look at the community surveys that said the #1 need we have is roads, then the question becomes, where does that money come from, as you have all certainly addressed. Now, y'all might have to help me out on this, but I read the number that $56 per year is the average amount that the citizen in Winnsboro will pay per year to fund this project. So y'all have to help me out. Is there somebody from the city here that can verify? I think it's $56 for each average homeowner per year to fund that. Is that correct? That's correct. So with that being said, I'm going to give you each 2 minutes. We're going to jump around randomly on this. Do you agree that $56 a year would be a good amount to do all this work? And if not, what is your plan to do it? So Chris, let's start with you.
Yes, that's a very good question. And always the question has been, how do we pay for this? I was on the workshop committee, and that was our hardest job, is to put everybody's idea, the intent, the amenities, and everything that they wanted. Are you there?
Should be great.
Yeah. Hello. There. And that was the biggest, that was the hardest workshop. There were four of us there. And are you getting me now? Okay. Sorry. Can I have my time started over?
Absolutely.
Okay. Thank you very much. Anyway, on the workshop, that was the biggest question, and it is expensive. Come on, people. Let's get realistic. Things are expensive these days. Streets are expensive. Roads are expensive. If they were not expensive, every city in Texas would have perfect, beautiful city streets. The reason they don't is because of the cost. We know this is an expensive situation. We looked at it. We had a financial planner come in. He explained how it works for us, and he said that the COO was our best option besides a bond. Do we really believe that after a $30 million school plus a $4.2 million football field bond issue, plus possibly an ag bond issue on top of that, that people were going to vote for this? All these projects are approximately under $60 per property owner of $100,000 is it what we calculated the city financial planner. That's $56 for all the things that you've seen on this list, to the best of my recollection. That's a good deal, people. It does not have a bond issue that just absolutely pummels your taxes. We all saw that. We love our school. We're thankful for it. It's a wonderful thing for this community, but we did see our taxes raised, and everybody can be acknowledged to that, and that's a fact. So how did we do this? We took a financial planner, the city financial planner's idea, that we could take the COO out for less than 2%. We asked him, several people on this committee asked the city financial planner, is it a good time for the city to borrow money? His answer on every single time was absolutely. This is the best time for the city to take money for this time. But anyway, this is a expensive venture. But are we going to sit back, just like the community college that we had a chance to bring here, and say, well, we dropped the ball on that one. Well, we dropped the ball on this one. We dropped the ball on that one. Are there projects on this board that should be resolved and looked at? Absolutely.
Thank you very much. Corey, let's go to you.
The roads, the means of dealing with the roads is what concerns me. The state of Texas predominantly subcontracts road work. Rather than the state of Texas having their own crews do these things, the state of Texas subcontracts this work, and there's a reason for that. Because professionals in a business know how to get jobs done efficiently and properly. The idea of the city buying paving machinery and sending employees to a 2-week school to become paving experts is really a bad idea. The idea of me buying a paving machine and thinking in 2 weeks I'm going to be paving roads competently is not an idea I would even consider. There are contractors who have approached the city and offered to lay asphalt for $3.12.5 per linear lane foot if the city provides the asphalt. And instead of embracing an offer like that, we have a plan that has been brought to the city council to buy $750,000 in equipment that nobody knows how to operate. And I assure you that in 2 weeks, they're not going to know how to operate it. And if they did figure out how to operate it, the next thing that would happen is some company would hire them away from the city. This is why cities don't prosper that do things in that means.
Thank you, Corey. Michael, let's go to you.
I believe that the amount of money that it will take to do this, the $56 to $60 a year is not a lot of money. This is not a bond, and it's something that cities all over the United States do when they go and have to deal with major things that need to be fixed. We had major things that needed to be fixed in our water department that unfortunately hadn't been done in 30 years and needed to be updating because we were going to end up one day and not have any clean water. And nobody wants to be boiling their water every single day. And so we had to go, you've got to go borrow money to do that. The city is in a good shape right now. They are. And I know this not even being on council right now, but for the past 6 years being on there. You know, for the past 5 years, our sales tax has gone up. It's not raised up. We have made more money. The income has come in. And then we're making more money on our property tax without raising taxes. So people are starting to come here. And so it's a good time for the city to be able to do this, to get some of these things done. And I don't think that, these guys going to get educated for 2 weeks. Nobody's going to put them out on a machine without somebody that's a professional that will watch them and train them for more than just 2 weeks. And I really would like to know where else we could get the money to do it. I haven't really heard that yet. So, thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Andrea, what about you? You've talked about streets.
Yes, I have, and everyone knows the cost of repairing streets, even keeping them in some sort of repair, is astronomical. It's hard for me even to just wrap my head around it. I did have to say that I have gone and talked to road commissioners outside of Winnsboro to get their spin on the roads, ways that they could help Winnsboro do some of the roads. We could buy the asphalt and contract their people, their equipment, so there is no maintenance required, because this equipment's going to have maintenance. We all know that. I have to disagree with the $56 meaning nothing. If you're that single mom that has the 2 kids, $56 means a lot. If you're that senior citizen that lives month to month, that's a lot. And also, we also have to remember right now, Winnsboro is also paying currently a $6 million debt that we currently have already, plus a school bond. We all love the new school. And then also, now we have the football field. Things we wanted, it's all been passed, we love it. But add up the debt, and now we're wanting to put $6 million more on top of that. And when that debt is paid, the additional $6 million right now, that will be $10 million when it's paid in full. So you're not looking at a $6 million debt. You're looking at additional $10 million debt with the debt that's already in place.
Thank you. CJ?
To me, this is the perfect time to borrow money. When you have debt, the city's already in debt at over 4% or right at 4%, and you can borrow money for, we said 2, but that's conservative, it's probably more like 1.5%, then it's the perfect time to borrow the money at a lower rate and pay off what we already owe, and then go forward with our strategic plan, because the strategic plan will ultimately bring in more money. So to me, that's not debt, that's an investment. That's just like refinancing your home, and I know people don't like to compare this, what we're talking about here, with your home, but it's the same principle. If you have your home mortgage right now, and you have, say, 2/3 of it you still owe at 4.25%, and you have the opportunity to refinance it, in the long run, you're going to come out better to do the refinancing. So my opinion is to go forward with what the experts have recommended, and bring in the money and bring in the people, and we need to have affordable housing, and we need to have a way for the youth here to be able to make a living and stay here in this town and raise their families and have something to make Winnsboro continue the way it has in the past. And we are on the cusp of really wonderful things, lots of new businesses coming to town, opening up, and it's just, I think the pandemic set us back a little bit, but we're still working that momentum, and I think that we need to move forward with this perfect opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you, CJ. Joan, will you wrap this up?
First of all, I wanted to talk about the $750,000 machine equipment. There's the thought too that what happens to that machine when you can't use it during the bad weather? It sits and you're still paying on it. I am not in favor of having the machine. I would rather see us use contractors to fix the streets and roads. The training would take not 2 weeks. It would probably take 2 years to have proper training for our maintenance people to learn how to use that machine. And who would do the work when they're out there repairing the roads? Coming from a transportation background, I think we need to do more research on other options that we would have to pay for streets and roads. Half-cent sales tax, half a penny. Our sales tax at the end of the year for a half a cent was $453,382 collected at the end of 2020. That would go a long ways to fix the roads and streets. Now, that would take something that was voted on by the voters, but that's an option. The other option that was passed out or thought about was a $5 fee on utility fees. I'm not in favor of that. Sulphur Springs has it. They're different population and different economy. And I could go on, but my time's up.
Thank you all so very much. Aren't we lucky to have these people that have been so gracious and so respectful to each other? And now we're going to come to you, the audience, and I assume you all will also be gracious and respectful to them, because I have a feeling they have probably given you a lot of questions on your mind. So if you have questions based on what you've heard tonight, or questions that you didn't submit that you'd like to ask, will you please come to this microphone here? I'm not sure if that microphone is turned on, is it? If you will come up to this microphone and tell us your name and whether you are home in Winnsboro as a resident, a business owner, or what brings you here tonight, and ask your question, and then please be seated so that our candidates you're addressing your question to will be able to answer. Who'd like to start? Come.
Cheryl Estes, and I'm a business owner here in Winnsboro. Okay, lots of good stuff tonight. Thank you all. So, Corey, in particular, you mentioned that you would like to bring real-world experience, and I know you've been very successful, as to how to manage the costs and the fundamentals of running a city. Personally, I think we all agree that it takes money to make money. With the city having an A+ credit rating, balanced budget for years and years, we've had at least 3 COs for public utility improvements with plans on the horizon to pay the principal off early. What would you as a group, individually, do to improve on what we're already doing? Thank you.
The funding, first I would like to speak, the vision, as I've expressed earlier, needs to be scaled back, and that's going to take some interaction with our city, with our citizens, the city council to, I think, redevelop the plan that's at hand. But to get to the point of funding, the fact that interest rates are low is wonderful, but I personally don't think there's ever a good time to go in debt. I went in debt for $1.25 million in 2008 with my business, and 3 months later the economy crashed, and I've spent the next 12 years struggling to get out of that. It's not a good feeling. And the people of Winnsboro want responsible, measured government. We are not Sulphur Springs. We are not on Interstate 30. We are not ever going to be Sulphur Springs. We need to fix our roads. Joan mentioned a half-cent sales tax. We already have that half-cent sales tax. And that half-cent is now being funded to WEDC. And those funds are being presided over by volunteers who distribute that money as they see appropriate, oftentimes to businesses that are already very successful and didn't need anyone to help them. I think that 450-something thousand in 2020 could at least, we could talk whether all of it or half of it was redirected to maintaining our streets. There's money, we're already paying these taxes. They're already, the citizens and business people of Winnsboro are already generating this tax money, and it's going into a fund that is giving it away. I never occurred to me when I bought the building on Main Street next to the Edward Jones building, it never occurred to me to go ask somebody to give me free money. I'm a businessman. If I'm going to go in business, I'm going to take on the burden of going into business, and I'm not going to spend my energies asking for free money. I'm just going to do it. And I believe business, real business people, that's how they think. The idea that we have a half-cent tax going to a fund to give away money is just absurd to me. And I would like to, it would require a referendum election in our city. This isn't just something a city council can decide. But I think the money is there. We just need to repurpose it which would require the city council arranging for a referendum vote to take it to the voters of Winnsboro.
Thank you, Corey. Anybody else have a direct response to Cheryl's question? All right, who else has a question? Yes, please. Tell us your name and what brings you here.
Janet Gail Willis, and I own Trails Country Reporter and Productions, and I have a business in the area. The question is particularly in reference to Mr. James and CJ, who have, on the public record, received monies from the EDC, particularly from Mr. James, who at one time stated when he was running for city council last year that he didn't care whether he won or lost. But the main question is, when he received $5,000 from the EDC for his 2 movies while I was EDC director in 2014, he made a promise of integrity to show those 2 movies at the Civic Center upon their release, and they were not. Is that true or not?
Take your microphone.
Thank you.
What exactly was your question?
You received $5,000 from the EDC as an incentive from the EDC that the city council approved at the time you were on city council, and you did respectfully recuse yourself from the vote. But you promised in performance agreement for that money, you would show the movies for free at the city in the city auditorium, and did not. Is that true?
Well, one, I did not receive any money personally. It was all, it was.
It was your company, Moon Monkey
It was
Productions.
part of the company.
Right.
Yes, it was.
Which you are president of the state.
Ma'am, are you going to let me
roads.
answer this
Thank you.
question, or are you going to continue to talk? Thank you. So, what we did was, we didn't just get $5,000 to come make a movie here. I actually went and contacted the city hall and went before them, because we had done this in other smaller towns where we got, basically, we would spend money in order to get that $5,000 worth of rebate. We spent $250,000 in the city limits of Winnsboro. And so we actually spent that in cash, and that was part of the deal, so that it would revitalize the city. That's what the EDC is for. It's to help energize the income or the economic growth in a town. We've done that in a couple of other places. So yes, our part of it that we got back was a $5,000 rebate on spending the other money we had. I don't know that we showed it in this town. I don't think it was ever was able to do that. That part of the thing was completely out of my personal hands. I had nothing to do with that, and wouldn't. There's other entities and other companies that are there. So my portion of it was to bring the stuff here to town, is what it was for. And so, yeah, I hope that answers your question. So,
Shannon Gale, was that the answer you also mentioned CJ's name? No. Okay, good. Okay, who else has a good question? Please come forward.
Hi, Stacy Finley. I think this is on still. Parks and Rec Director. I just come as a farmer today, community member. Just directly in response to the idea of, let's say, all 400,000 of these dollars that are EDC directed, that we redirect those to roads. Knowing what we know, that little Cheryl Street, good example because that is recent, that was about 200 grand. Do we think that that is enough? Basically being able to take on 2 Cheryl Streets a year is what is the only alternate plan, I guess I should say, that I've heard tonight for repairing streets. And do y'all feel like that, anybody that wants to answer this, do y'all feel like that is substantial enough to really address the street needs in our town? Thank you.
I'll be happy to speak to that. In our last year's budget, there was $2,500 budgeted for street repair. $2,500. The average road in 2020 in the nation for retopping a asphalt road is $924,000 per mile. That's for a 2-lane, just a retop, not a new road. You've probably figured out that public speaking is not my forte, but anyway, the $450,000 of a half cent is what, 20-something times the budget we had last year, so it's a good start. Whether it's the entire solution or not is certainly something the city council needs to discuss. But this, up until now, how many years have we had these road problems? It certainly didn't start last year. It didn't start the year before. It didn't start 10 years ago. And all these years, we've had city councils, people speaking to city councils saying, well, if we invest in this, the tax monies will come in and then we can fix the roads. And however many decades later, 2020 came around and we had $2,500 budget for the roads. So all these plans that are always promising that they're going to be the investment that's going to solve all the problems, bringing in more money, it's never happened.
Andrea, you, I think, also wanted to comment on that.
Yes, my first question would be, out of all the roads in the city that need repair, why was Cheryl Street the ones that were repaired? These are, I mean, and my Nana lives in that over there, and she benefited from the roads being repaired. I'll be the first to say. But Post Oak needs to be repaired, and that's a very highly traveled road. So my question, I guess, would be back to the, city. Why was that road picked to be repaired? We're back to wants and needs. Somebody might have wanted that street repaired, and I'm sure everybody on that street appreciates the fact that it was repaired, but instead of repairing the road that's not traveled by many, why was not a road that is traveled every day by hundreds of people over by the school, why wasn't that money put into that road? I guess that would be my question back.
Thank you, Andrea. Do you want to speak to this, Chris? And then we'll move on.
See if this will work again. I'd like to respond to that, Andrea. Yeah, that's a good point. What you fail to see that was grant money given to the city, and the stipulation on it was that we had to find low-income area residencies in order to get that grant money to do that street. That was not city money, that was grant money. That was the state's recommendation and requirement that we did that. So we searched the neighborhoods. We went door to door, knocking on doors, asking, getting quotient, finding out who was there and who was not, their income level and everything. This was not just just choose something at random. And if you paid more attention to what's going on in the city through that type of situation, you'd know that instead of having to put this stuff out there. I'm sorry, Andrea, but
let's
you're
try
just wrong.
to keep this a little
Okay.
calm, guys.
I apologize, but anyway, it was just a grant, and the recommendations and the requirements by the state said it had to be low-income area or they would not fund it.
Thank you for clarifying that.
Could I just respond real quick?
Of course.
So in Mr. Columbus saying that, then the city actually has not repaired any roads. If that was grant money, no money from the city has actually repaired roads.
That's right. All right, who else has a question?
I have a response.
Yes, please. Let's give Joan a chance to just quickly respond because we only have a few minutes left, and then you'll be the last question, all right?
I just wanted to say that Stacy and I had been talking about different mediums to use to repair roads, and with our interest in recycling, we had been looking at different materials that were used from recycled materials to repair roads. And that's one option that could be used, for instance, right out here or on Carnegie coming into the park. Maybe recycled tires that might be cheaper than the materials used on the streets and roads out in the main area. Or in our parks or something like that. So there are different options out there that might be more cost effective.
Thank you. Would you like to wrap us up? And then I'm going to give all of the candidates 2 minutes to end our evening together. I'm sure they're willing to stay. That if you have questions of them afterwards directly, you can speak with them when the forum is over. But let's finish up with your question if you'll introduce yourself.
I'm Mary Castor.
Could
and
you
my-
speak into the microphone?
I'm Mary Castor, and my husband and I moved here. We're both retired. We moved here about 6 months ago, so I'm really new here. And I just had questions. The 3 meetings that you all went to, whatever that was called, and you talked about the big plan. I don't know what that is, but does that include the streets? It did. Okay. Is there a plan, like how many streets need to be repaired and how much an estimate of how much it would cost or anything like that? I would guess there's something like that.
Joan, you want to take that?
The total cost, which would include equipment purchase, road analysis, and materials, was estimated at $1.751 million. It did not identify, that came as part of the road analysis, it did not identify the individual streets. That would be left up to a consultant that would be hired by the city to identify. And we did have a presentation at a city council meeting where they explained how the analysis would go. Using drones, for instance, over the streets, but that's just
So there's kind of an estimate, and then people were talking about the $56 per $100,000 of homeowners or something. The home is worth $100,000. That person would pay $56 per year? Is that right? Or $56 per month? Annually. That just seems like such a no-brainer to me. I don't know.
Thank you very much for that. I know you have more questions. I see your hands, but I do respect your time and I respect our candidates' time. I'm just so grateful to all of you for being here. I'm going to ask each one of them now to really focus in on their 2 minutes, because 2 minutes goes very quickly, as you all know. Will you please just tell everyone here today and that's listening and watching the 2 minutes of the most important things they need to know if they're going to vote for you? We'll start on your end, Andrea.
First of all, I would appreciate your vote. My background is in finance. I audit accounts. I'm responsible for paying out money all over the world for Team Worldwide. There has to be a transparency between the city and the people in the city. There has to be an accountability. And with that, then you will see how there's no secret. You will see how everything is spent. You have an itemized list. It's transparency that we're not seeing right now. Like I said, I do finance. I have done it for 29 years. I audit accounts. That's my job. And I can look at things and think, this is just not adding up to me. And maybe it would if I could see all the detail, but I don't see that. I think we have got to come up with a plan for the roads. And I think, this is my personal opinion, I think the $1 million that is scheduled to go toward the new city hall to bring back the old one, I was here when the old one, I think that money should be spent in better ways, roads, things of that sort. That building can wait. I'm sorry. We need to look at what is important now. And then the next thing is we need to bring measured growth to the city of Winnsboro. We want business. Of course, all of us want business to come in. That's kind of like who would say, no, we don't want business to come in? Everybody wants businesses to come in. We want everybody to exceed. We want the people on Main Street, like Miss Estes, we want her business to flourish. We want everyone's business to flourish. We don't want people to go out. But you have to have the accountability, and if you're not transparent and cannot show the accountability, that is when problems arise.
Thanks, Andrea. Michael.
I would like to be mayor. I would like to be your mayor. I feel that the responsibility of mayor, the problem that we have had over the past several years, many years, is that the mayors that we have had have not been doing the job that it is described to do. And one, that is being the voice to the public and being the voice of the city council. And so that is one thing that I would want to do and reestablish as an important aspect of the way that a mayor, of what he is supposed to do, or what is required and that kind of thing. And I do believe that that it's important that transparency is there. And so unfortunately you're right, we've not had that come out of the mayor's position in a very long time. And it's time to have that back again, because the mayor's job is a servant to the public. And I kind of like the way that George Washington used to sign all his letters when he signed. And he would sign it, "Your most humble and obedient servant." And that wraps up what a mayor is supposed to be. Thank you.
Corey.
Thank you. The issues before Winnsboro right now are substantial. We're looking at over $6 million of debt being brought on the taxpayers of Winnsboro. I take that very seriously. I think our vision is overbloated. There's much that needs to be done, but I think we have a plan that's in place that needs to be completely reevaluated, and we need to start with a fresh sheet of paper. I think a microcosm of the problem was mentioned a minute ago when we talked about how do we decide what roads to fix. And then the idea is hiring engineering companies to fly drones around and look at our streets. Folks, I can get my asphalt contractor in my truck, and in 5 minutes we can drive around town and find out what roads need to be fixed. We don't need to pay engineering companies tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars to tell us which road to fix, and we hadn't even fixed them yet. We've just spent more money. We need common sense and real world experience brought to our city government. Thank you.
Thank you, Corey. CJ.
Yes. I am running for city council, not mayor, thank goodness. And but I do commend those two for wanting to take on that job. I do not profess to have all the answers at all. I am fairly new to city government, as I mentioned earlier, getting on the Planning and Zoning Committee. And but I'm very interested in it, and I, of course, have Winnsboro's future at heart, and and everybody up here does too, cares about the future of Winnsboro. But I guess the takeaway I want you to have is that I am willing to sit down and exchange ideas and listen to and talk with anyone who is willing to do the same. I can work with anyone who's working for the same goal, and I do believe in communication. That's the key, and of course transparency plays into that. And so communication is, you know, not only trying to get your own point across, but also listening and trying to understand the other person's point of view. And I think if that's what we're committed to doing, then we will ultimately get to where we all want to go. And so I ask for your vote for city council, and I promise to work and learn as much as I can and make the best decisions in your interest. Thank you.
Thank you, CJ. Chris?
Thank you, everyone. There's one thing that's for sure about it, everybody has the same goals here. We want our city to be safe. We want opportunities for our children. We want streets. Why the street issue is so prominent is simple. The 500 plus surveys, that was the number one thing. So that's a topic of discussion here. But there are other projects on the plate also for that $56 a year. Every person up here, I believe with all my heart, has the best interest of the city. We have difference of opinions, but guess what? That's what our country was based on. There are 3 branches of government that are watchdogs over each other, and there's a reason for that. And that's the same thing we have here. We have watchdogs that people like this. We have people that come up and say, why? How come that happened? Why did we spend this money on this thing? This is a good thing for our country and our community. If we didn't have it, we'd have a dictatorship, and that's not what we want here. We have 3,400 plus people here. We need to live in harmony. We need to work together. And if you have ideas, come to the city council meetings or put it in on writing and say, hey, I have an idea. Maybe it's been thought of, maybe it hasn't. But the 2 heads are better than one is absolutely the truth in the situation. And yeah, we have different approaches where we want to go and how we want to do it. But there's no doubt in my mind, and you'll never convince me in any other way, that there's not a candidate up here that doesn't have the best interests of this city at heart. Thank you for your time. I'm hoping for a re-election. I think it's the time. I think I have a lot to offer the city. And thank you very much once again.
Thank you very much. Chris? Joan?
So from my experiences of the past, I believe that my strengths that I bring to the council include the knowledge of governmental practices and procedures, budget and financial oversight, ability to understand and listen to the needs of all people, and a 3-term council member serving for a total of 6 years. So my life comes first full circle as a servant, as a 17-year-old student council member believing in governmental structure, to working on a university campus listening and believing in the people's free speech, to interacting with numerous political personalities, to here in Winnsboro, answering and serving the needs of all of you. I hope that you find that I have represented you well these past 6 years and as your council member, and that you will cast your vote for me on May 1st.
Thank you very much. There are several people that I really, truly want to thank for making this possible today. You all being here is just remarkable. We're a small community, and look around, your neighbors are here, and you care about this city that we all love so much. I really want to thank Tina Davis, who's the new editor of the Winnsboro paper. This came upon her. I heard a rumor earlier today that there were no questions submitted, and that was certainly not true. I also want to thank you, Brother David, and your team. They're all here, and we just count on you, and this community loves you all. Thank you very much for everything that you have done. We appreciate you greatly. Wood County Now is here. They're broadcasting live. I hope your live stream held up. Very good. Very, very good. Sandy, thank you so much. Sandy Howard from the city stepped in at the last minute to be our timer, and we figured out our phones eventually, didn't we? But most important, I really do want to thank these candidates. This is not easy to give of yourself the way these folks are willing to do. And thank you for opening yourself and being authentic with us. We are grateful. I know that 3 of these folks will be serving you, and the other 3 will continue to serve you in other ways after the election, because I know you all love this city, and you're not going to give up on this city just because you don't get elected. I know that. So thank you for all of that. Thank you to all of you. Have a wonderful night. And please stay and ask questions. I'm sure they'll be happy to discuss it with you. Have a good night, everybody.